Should every color have land ramp? Blue recently got a new ramp card in the form of Copy Land, an entirely new effect for the color, and it begs the question, is this a good thing? Blue has a long history of being able to copy most permanent types. It's always had clone effects, it's been able to copy artifacts, and comparatively more recently, copy enchantments. So when approaching the concept of copying lands from this angle, it doesn't seem outside its color pie at all. But what copying the other card types doesn't do is ramp lands, something that blue can almost never do. Land ramp, outside of very fringe cases, is limited to green and white. Green has tons of variations of land ramp and dominates the ability by a wide margin. White has a handful of catch-up ramp cards that it leans on heavily to make it the second best land ramp color, but it is much worse at it than green. In order to ramp with these cards, you have to jump through hoops for them to even do anything. And then you come to the other colors. Blue, red, and black have fringe ways of ramping, almost never in the form of putting extra lands on the battlefield. These three colors almost universally have to rely on mana rocks to ramp. Mana rocks are probably the quickest way of ramping, with fast mana like Soul Ring and Mana Crypt enabling huge bursts in mana as early as turn 1. But outside of CEDH, mana rocks can actually become a liability. In Casual Commander, you can almost always expect some kind of artifact sweeper to go off at some point each game. That means mana rocks give you a boost in mana, but have an expiration date, which correlates to whenever that sweeper goes off. If you ramp quickly and get 3 mana rocks out early game, and a player casts a turn 6 farewell, then you did get 3 for 1, and those mana rocks only ramped you for 3 or so turns. If you ramp quickly, and an opponent casts a turn 3 Brotherhood's End, then those mana rocks ramped you only a turn or less. In Casual Commander, mana rocks are often just worse than land ramp. You can tell because green decks will almost never include 2-drop mana rocks over a 2-drop land ramp spell. The signets and talismans that include green are much less desirable and less often played than any other color combination, because it doesn't make much sense to play them in a deck that includes green. That means green, and to a much lesser extent white, but mostly green, has a lopsided advantage in Commander. Because of a taboo around mass land destruction, green can ramp all at once and the other colors can't. There also is an argument to be made that green is the color that is least affected by mass land destruction. After a mass land destruction event, green decks could theoretically be able to rebuild faster and more consistently with the land ramp spells they already include in all green decks. The only situation in which these ramp spells would be useless is if they can't cast them, or every searchable land was already removed from their library, and in a 100 card format, it's very unlikely that there won't be lands left in your deck, even if you ramp to 15 lands beforehand. Green also has the most numerous and most efficient ways of returning all their lands from the graveyard to play. It regularly gets variations of Splendid Reclamation, and even on uncommons like Aftermath Analyst. Everyone throwing around mass land destruction isn't going to make green ramp any less dominant. I'm going to go ahead and go on record saying mass land destruction isn't the answer to the lopsided ramp problem. But what if we even the playing field a bit? White has already received a bit of help when it comes to land ramp, but not much. There are probably fewer than a dozen white cards that can search a land on the battlefield, and almost every one requires an opponent to control more lands. Catch-up ramp is good, but inconsistent. There are times when your catch-up ramp cards will do nothing, and multiple cards with catch-up ramp abilities give you diminishing returns. If you're first in the turn cycle, your turn 2 Knight of the White Orchid is pretty useless. If you use a catch-up ramp spell to give you the same number of lands as the opponent ahead, your next catch-up ramp spell is useless. However, I don't think that's really a problem. Giving other colors land ramp may be a good thing, but making these non-green land ramp spells too good would be a problem. Green is the land ramp color. In order to maintain the color pie, it should always have the most numerous and most efficient land ramp spells. Green does need to remain dominant, but having the ability bleed into other colors in flavorful ways isn't a bad thing. Blue is the card draw color, and for the most part it does it best. Blue can draw the largest number of cards, most consistently, but for the game to function, and other colors to not have a built-in handicap, card draw had to bleed into other colors in flavorful ways that care about what those colors care about. I think we could do the same thing for ramp. I think that WotC can find flavorful in-color ways for blue, black, and red to get infrequent instances of land ramp. But before we talk about how we can add to the colors, we should probably talk about the current state of the game. How do these colors ramp currently, and what are in-flavor ways of ramping for each color? Blue, oddly enough, seems to be the third best color at land ramp. You'd think it would be red, considering red is the second most popular monocolored landfall choice after green. But if you look at the landfall theme page of EDH Rec and look at red, you have a lot of landfall payoffs and a few ways of triggering landfall a lot all at once by sacking lands and searching for other ones, but none of these cards actually put you ahead on lands. Nahiri's Lithoforming can trigger landfall a lot, but it doesn't ramp you. Cleansing Wildfire almost looks like a ramp spell, but despite triggering landfall, you stay even on lands. The only card I see that actually land ramps in red is Alpine Guide, but that's a very iffy card considering you deramp as soon as it leaves play. The way red ramps, outside of mana rocks, is with rituals and treasures. Rituals are best in red, with the widest variety of them, but rituals also tend to push decks toward a storm strategy. Not many decks play rituals outside of storm unless the card is just exceptionally powerful on top of being a ritual. Rituals in general can't compete with the power of land ramp since you're often throwing away card advantage for a quick boost in mana. You run out of cards quickly, and if you're not storming off, you'll end up dead in the water. Treasures, on the other hand, do allow red to accrue long-term advantage. Instead of throwing away cards with rituals, cards that make treasures allow you to save up mana for later and use them one at a time or in one burst. They provide flexibility, and when you can consistently produce them, they can function almost as well as land ramp. They do have the same issues as mana rocks in that they don't provide any ramp advantage past the point of an artifact sweeper being played. Green still has a leg up in that their ramp survives and red doesn't. So how would we make red land ramp? I think we could combine it with a different part of red's color pie. Impulse Draw is becoming more common and consistent in red, and is very much in red's color pie. So what if there was a 3-mana card that let you Impulse Draw 3 cards, but also said, you can play an extra land this turn as long as it's from exile? That would be a way for red to land ramp that's firmly in red's color pie. Having 3 to 5 of these cards, made over a few years, could open up red's ability to compete long term with the other colors that ramp way better. It's still not anywhere near as good as green or white's versions. Getting an extra land is not guaranteed off of the Impulse Draw, and it would cost 3 or more mana as opposed to the 2 mana required in those other colors. I think it could work. Blue has more land ramp than other colors outside of green and white, but it does it in a weird way. Besides the new copy land card that prompted this video, you have Dreamscape Artist, which costs a lot of mana and is slow. It's the only mono blue card I can find that searches for lands to put on the battlefield. There are some decks that may want it though. You also have a myriad of untap effects which act as a form of ramp. These can work well enough to get you ahead on mana production when they're on the battlefield, but they share the same issue as mana rocks. They get swept up in wraths and your mana advantage is gone. Blue has odd cards that can put extra lands into play if they have the same name as another permanent. Mitotic, Manipulation, and Retraced Image allow you to ramp if you have a basic island in play and a basic island in the top 7 cards or in your hand respectively. I think these kind of cards are great. They reward you for playing basics, something that players should really do more of. They are less functional the more colors in your deck, and because of those built-in restrictions, they are less reliable and powerful than green and white. I'd love to see more cards like this. In a similar vein, Mimeofactor can steal a basic from an opponent. If they have a swamp in play, you can ramp a swamp out of their deck. This is a little less reliable since it depends on your opponents having a basic land in play early, but it is still functional ramp. There is also Patron of the Moon, a unique card for blue that was made to offset the self-sabotaging Moonfolk mechanic of returning lands to hand in the original Kamigawa block. However, I think this effect fits very well in blue's color pie. Blue is the color card draw, and combining card draw to get extra lands in your hand with another card that enables you to put lands from your hand onto the battlefield is a fitting way for blue to get in-color land ramp. I would be happy to see more of this kind of effect, as long as it doesn't compete with white or green in terms of efficiency. Blue also has annex effects. Stealing an opponent's land does ramp you. I think this is actually great for blue, and I wish it wasn't something that made people so salty. I think it's very fair, and isn't a problem unless it's bullying one player who's already behind on lands. But my favorite kind of blue ramp is making land tokens. Replication technique is the best version of this effect. It can copy lands. When you're in the early, mid-game, and really need a ramp, you can use replication technique to copy a land once or twice and ramp you into your big finishers. I think replication technique is a perfect solution for blue Spellslinger or mid-range decks not being able to ramp well outside of mana rocks. I would absolutely love to see more of this effect in blue. It's a very in-color way of giving blue limited ramp, and I think we need more of it. Orvar, the all form, can also do this, but it's not really on the same level as replication technique. In order to copy a land, you'd need an instant or sorcery that can target it, and not be a detrimental effect. And are those cards very playable? You're likely to build your deck to be able to target non-land permanents primarily, so the land copying won't come up much. Black currently ramps mainly based on the number of swamps you play. The best ways for black to ramp are with Cabal Coffers, Nirkana Revenant, and Cryptcast. These are extremely powerful mana ramp pieces that can overshadow almost all other colors when it comes to massive, consistent mana production. That is, if you have large numbers of swamps. These cards get less functional the more colors you play, and in 2 or 3 color decks are very inconsistent and probably not worth playing. The way players get around this is by including an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth to turn all your lands into swamps. But you need to find the Urborg and the Cabal Coffers and not let either get destroyed. If you can't do all 3, your mana ramp turns off. Because of this one card being the sole playable enabler for this combo, it's a $40 card. It has always maintained a hefty price tag, no matter the reprints, and it always will. Ramping in black is expensive. Black also has a few rituals that can see play, but mostly at the upper competitive tiers of Commander, or in a more stormy build. So, how would black land ramp function? Like red, I think we'd have to combine it with another of black's abilities. Theft effects are becoming much more prevalent in black now, so why not combine it with that? There could be black cards that allow you to play an extra land for turn, as long as you don't own it. That can combine with theft effects like Karu Mindeater or Nashi Moonsage's Scion to allow you to ramp. Or there could be cards that allow you to play an extra land for turn from an opponent's graveyard. I think there are plenty of in-color ways to make this work. Every color also has a few cards that can transform into lands. Cards like Search for Ascanta, Brass's Tunnel Grinder, and Tarian's Journal are cards that require you to meet a certain requirement, and then they transform into a land. They put you ahead on land count, so they are ramp. I think these are actually great. Cards that give you an in-color minigame to complete, and if you do, you're rewarded with ramp and a land with a powerful ability. Even if you disagree that all colors shouldn't have ramp, it's hard to deny that these aren't in-color ways to ramp that don't break the color pie or the game. I think these designs are great for the game, and want to see a lot more of them. Being able to realistically play 5 or more of these in your decks can really help non-green colors stay even on mana production. So, back to the question in the title. Should every color have land ramp? I think the answer is a definitive yes, and most colors already do. Should each color get more land ramp? I think the answer to that is yes as well. Ramp, along with card draw and creature combat, is one of the fundamental parts of the game that every color needs to be able to function. Every color should get some of all of those game fundamentals. Colors should be worse or better at it in accordance with their color philosophy and the color pie. And as long as new land ramp cards are made with the intent to be as in color and flavorful as possible, there shouldn't be an issue. Green has had an outsized presence in Commander for a long time, being the only color that can ramp consistently, with its ramp being untouchable. Every other color has been at a disadvantage, playing with mana rocks that get blown up or other permanents that get swept away. Green should still be the best color at land ramp, but throwing the other colors a bone now and then can only help the game, and can help to address the land ramp disparity. Mass land destruction isn't the answer. Evening the playing field is. What do you all think? Do you think other colors should get more in-color ways to ramp with lands? Or do you think that green and white should be the only colors able to do it? If you were to make land ramp in other colors, how would you do it and stay faithful to the color pie? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe to be notified about more Magic and Commander content. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.